So welcome to SeniorFlix. So what we're doing today is we're talking to people from different cultures and sort of exploring that. And we have so many interesting people here at Shepherd Village. And one of the particularly interesting people here is Carlota, who's lived here for some long time. And she has an interesting background, interesting story. Yeah, so you were born in China. So how did that happen? Because you're sort of Filipino background.
But I was born in China, and that was because my father who's a Filipino, was stationed there as a U.S. Army sergeant.
Okay.
And then when he retired, he loved the diversity in Tianjin so much that he decided to stay there. And so that's why I was born. Yeah. And of course, in the early years, China was not as open as, for instance, as here in Canada or what. Everything is a bit more tighter together, right?
Okay.
But the thing is, much later on, it was different. But I loved going to school there.
Yeah.
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 Because I was born in 1934, and the school was St. Joseph's Catholic School for girls.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And you know, the beautiful surprise there was that they taught French also from grade 1 to 12.
Okay.
So being there was nice. You learned French. You've been able to learn some Chinese, the Mandarin language.
Yeah.
And so that added to your, to your ability to communicate. Yeah.
So you enjoyed your early school days in China.
Much.
And you went to that school. Why? Because your father was
Because, well, of course, the goal is always to go to an English school.
Okay.
Of course, I would not go to a Chinese school. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And the school was nice. It had Chinese students my age. It had all of the daughters of who were the daughters of ambassadors, of other dignitaries and business people there. Yeah. And then there were also some older students who had already graduated from Chinese school because they wanted to learn English and the English ways before they traveled to the United States for university.
I see.
Because there are many Chinese people who are quite wealthy.
Yes.
They're very, very wealthy with beautiful homes.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And of course, I have not heard people wanting to come to university in Canada. Not then, not back then.
Yeah.
But it was all preparing for the U.S.
Everybody knew about the U.S. back then, and
yes. Because China then, in the old days, were quite open, quite friendly with what I would say are the Western countries.
Yeah.
For instance, where we lived, it was called the British concession. There's actually a British concession.
Yeah.
And then where I studied, my school was in the French concession. So you see that they were friends with many, many countries.
So a concession would be like an area of the of the country where there'd be the schools and
right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what part of China was that north or south or whereabouts?
It would be sort of in the eastern part, and Tianjin was a sort of an international port, a business port.
Yeah.
Where and a lot of businesses, of course.
Yes. So how long did you live there then in
China? Well, actually lived there until 1948. So 14 years, because by that time the threat of communism had come. And also, for your information, when we were living there, then we were sort of from the 1940s. We were under Japanese occupation. You know, Japan had invaded Pearl Harbor and then the Philippines. And that was very dangerous for us because my father being a U.S. Army retiree
Yeah.
would be considered an enemy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I was thinking that. So 1948, yeah, so you were there all through those war
All
years.
through those years.
Yeah.
Some very good early years, very difficult later years,
Yeah.
when, for instance, at meal times, my mother and our house helper would not join us at the table because they were just waiting until we were finished for any leftovers. It was that difficult.
Really?
And that
Wow.
was a very, very sad thought,
Yeah.
sad memory
Yeah.
that I have.
So you left there in 1948. What happened then?
We left in 1948 on a U.S. Navy boat because it was the U.S. government and the Philippine government who told us they would no longer be able to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we left December 18, 48.
Yeah.
And that was so timely because January 1, 49, Mao Zedong, the communist
Yeah.
leader, arrived.
So you spent that Christmas on this boat then, on the way from there to.
Which was quite nice, you know.
What was it?
That the boat took us to Shanghai, okay?
Yes.
And they entertained us.
Yes.
And like, the women or children slept in the rooms of the soldiers or whatever.
Yeah.
And we saw movies. For
Yeah.
instance, I saw Sentimental Journey
Okay.
on,
Yeah.
on the USS Cavalier. Yeah.
Really?
And
Yeah.
and that's the first time I saw Doris Day. Right?
Yeah.
And
Okay. Yeah.
so one thing good about when I was thinking about this interview, of course, I was trying to remember things.
Yeah.
And that was really nice,
Yeah.
trying to remember.
So where did that boat dock then? Where did you land in
In
North
Shanghai,
America? Yeah.
in Shanghai. And then we waited for a Filipino boat to arrive. And
Yeah.
it was the Leneveret. The boat's name was Leneveret, and that took us to the Philippines.
That took you to the Philippines.
Yeah. Can you imagine
Yeah.
leaving China
Yeah.
in December, which is a winter month,
Yeah.
and arriving in the Philippines, which is like
Yeah.
the temperature was always warm.
It was nice and warm there.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was such a big difference,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so then, now you're in the Philippines. So now you're sort of a teenager, more or less.
14,
14.
yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, my goal focus was just to continue my studies.
Yes.
And what was nice, I was able to go to a school that was actually arranged by the nuns in China in my school.
Yeah.
Because when I boarded the boat in China to leave, the surprise was there were 3 nuns from my school who were on board waiting for us
Okay.
to wish us well,
Yeah.
to tell us that they've arranged certain schooling for
Wonderful,
me
yes.
by the same Franciscan missionaries of Mary.
Yeah.
And also made me promise to say 3 Our Fathers, 3 Hail Marys, and 3 Glory Bees every night.
I see. Okay.
That was
So that was important.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, how did you come to end up in Canada then?
Well, actually, yeah, I was in the hospital in the Philippines recuperating from some blood condition when one of my best friends came to visit me, and she apologized for being late because she came late in the evening. The reason was that she had to bring her sister-in-law and her family to the airport because they were emigrating to Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
So when I heard that, boy, that was really intensely fascinating
Yes.
because, to be honestly, I didn't know very much about Canada.
I can imagine.
Then,
I can
at that
imagine.
time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so And after that, I sort of asked my husband, you know, what do you think about maybe immigrating to Canada?
Yeah. Okay, so by now you were married then. So
Oh,
you got
oh
married.
no. At that time, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Yeah.
was, yeah. It
Yeah.
was in my married years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, what do you think? And he says, well, that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
That was a surprise because
Yeah.
he is more a shyer person and
Yeah.
a more,
Yeah.
but he said that was interesting.
Yeah.
So then I did some research
Yeah.
and I liked what I found.
Yeah.
And that's especially the thing that for your children, because I had children already,
Yes.
that they would receive a monthly, I forget exactly what it's called, but every month there would be some amount of
I think
money.
they call it a baby bonus.
Oh,
or
baby
something.
bonus,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And so that was good news, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And so that was what motivated us
Yes.
to come to Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what did you work at then, and what sort of work did you do?
Well, of course, then we went to apply to Canadian consulate in the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
And then we were told that by the person who interviewed us that based on our interview, we were acceptable. But we would have to wait for the official approval that'll
Yes.
come from Canada.
Yes.
And so we would wait and wait and wait, I would check the mail every day.
Yeah.
And one day, nobody told me anything. But when I went to my bedroom, I saw a letter from Canada pasted to the mirror
Yeah.
on and because everybody knew how I was checking the mail every day.
Yes.
Just wanted to surprise me. Now, that was a surprise.
Was that a good surprise?
Oh, a good surprise.
Yeah.
We had to arrive in Canada
Yeah.
6 months after the date of the approval stated there.
Yeah.
And because we were leaving our country for good, we decided to wait, to stay in the country as long as we could
Yes.
and leave at during the last month.
Yes.
But however, after we've decided and made all the plans, there was a time when we were very worried because what if there was an accident?
Yeah.
Or what if we got critical ill?
Yeah.
We would not be able to meet
Yeah.
that 6-month deadline.
Yeah.
And we would lose the golden opportunity
Yeah.
to come here,
Yeah. Yeah.
But luckily, the Lord provided.
To provide it.
Yeah.
Very
Nothing
good.
happened,
Yeah.
and everything went on.
Yeah.
And then we also decided, we didn't have wealth or we didn't have a bundle of money. The only funds that we were able to bring with us were from the sale of our house.
Yes.
That's to bring.
Yes.
But then we also talked about we had no family here. There was no job waiting,
Right. Yes.
And how long would it be before the kids can have a vacation?
Yes.
So then we decided, okay, we'll give the kids a vacation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
before
now,
arriving in Canada, we went to California to be able to vacation at Disneyland.
okay. Yes.
So they had a holiday there.
Yes. Yeah. So you've grown up in three quite distinct cultures. You've grown up Chinese, Filipino, and now Canadian. So
And as a result of that, I don't think that I had any fear of different cultures or whatever.
yeah.
Although in China, we had to learn to be very respectful to seniors,
Yeah.
very respectful.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, it was the more open, and
Yes.
it was known for its hospitality, its friendship.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
and it's learning all the cultures, and it helped.
Yeah.
And it helped. So, and of course, It helped in the language because we were able to learn Chinese, Mandarin in
Yes.
China.
Yes.
We learned French in school.
Yes.
Then we arrived in the Philippines. The surprise was that Spanish would be taught,
Yeah. Yeah.
because, well, the Philippines was under Spanish rule for 3 centuries.
Really?
Centuries.
Yeah.
This was after Magellan discovered our country,
Yeah.
for King Felipe of Spain,
Yes.
or that'd be King Philip.
Okay.
And that's why Philippines was named for
Oh, really? Okay.
Philip, right?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was Spanish was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've sure had an interesting background, Carlota. So what do you think of Canada then? Do you have any regrets or?
Oh, no regrets at all. We appreciated China for the freedom we have here,
Yeah.
for everything that all the benefits that we received, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because there was no such thing as the baby bonus or whatever in the Philippines.
Right.
And even in China, for instance, there was a time when there was no money to buy food because during the occupation, my father was not receiving his pension. I mean, there was no way of getting it.
Yeah.
And so
your father, he was in the U.S. military. So was he an American citizen then, your father?
no, he was not.
No.
And that I can explain by saying, okay, so the Philippines was under Spanish rule for 3 centuries
Yes.
until there was a Spanish-American War,
Yes.
and the Spaniards lost to the Americans,
Yes.
and they lost the
Yeah.
Philippines.
Yes.
So then
Okay.
American took over,
Yeah.
and we were under American rule.
Yes.
And that's why we understood a lot about America.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so life was fairly,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say fairly easy because you had to have a good job, you had to be able to,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it was not that bad,
Yeah. And how long again have you lived at Shepherd Village?
Oh gosh, that's something sometimes I'm embarrassed to say because
You're amongst friends here, Carlota.
I've been here, okay, I came November 23, 2009.
So you've
That's
been here
almost
about
12,
13 or
13
14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my husband had to come to long-term care.
Yes.
And he was accepted, but there was no room for him. So he was at another place.
Yes.
And then after a while, I decided. At first, I thought I would apply. I did apply at the manor so that I would be close to him. But then later, I decided I will come to the lodge because I had my problems and I had already been cleared to that I can come to long-term care. And so, and can you imagine, people wait for years to get a room here. I applied in August of 2009.
Yeah.
And I got a letter approving me to come in November.
Really?
Just how many months?
Really?
Right?
Really?
And
Yeah.
because my husband is kind of, well, because he was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. He had dementia. And Lewy body, I think, is sort of considered the worst kind of dementia.
Yes.
He was quite difficult,
Yes.
And so the doctors mentioned that he might live at least 3 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided that I'll be here with him to make things easier.
Yeah.
Although my children said, "No, Mom, you're not going to long-term care." You see all of the
Yeah.
all of the impressions people have of long-term care.
Yeah. And since you've been in long term, you've been pretty busy here, haven't you? I mean, you're on the council there in the lodge, and you
A
do
little
those
bit,
things. And
yeah.
so,
I sort of I did sort of I became editor of the newsletter
yes,
In Sync,
yes,
which stopped publicizing with the advent of COVID.
yes,
COVID.
yes, right,
And
Yeah.
pretty soon it might revive again.
yes,
So yeah, I did there.
yeah. Yeah, that's good. So, so in other words, you've been gainfully employed since you moved here, Carlota.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
and but when my husband got a job almost immediately. Okay,
Yeah.
he worked in TV, and over here he got a job at CFTO, which now is CTV.
Yes, right.
Although the consular people in the Philippines advised him to apply at CBC.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I, of course, could not work right away because back home we
Yeah.
did have a cook and we did have a housekeeper.
Yes. Yeah.
And here I have to learn. I have
Yeah.
homework to do. Yeah.
It's fascinating in how even at this age there's still things to learn, aren't there? There were things that, but you know, you've had a most interesting life, haven't you? And you look back and
Yeah,
you know,
and looking back, because of Tassine's asking me to do this
yes,
interview,
yeah,
it was a great opportunity to think, because I haven't been thinking always, you know,
Yeah.
from the very beginning, from
Yeah.
China to, you know,
yeah.
and yeah.
Well, good for you. Well, you remember the names of the ships and the places you've been, and so
Yeah.
that's been really good. So, well, this has been really good, Carlota. So it's been most interesting to hear from you and the different cultures that you've grown up in, and how you've coped
It's
and how
learning and living.
how you continue to cope. So
Yeah.
that's very good. So
And that's why coming here,
yeah,
there was no culture block either, because
very good.
like in the Philippines,
Yeah,
everybody was speaking English.
Yeah.
All of the businesses, a lot were owned by foreign
yes, yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. That's been really interesting. So on behalf of SeniorFlix, thank you, Carlota. That's been very
you.
interesting and
thank you so
informative.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.